Half a day and good morning, everyone. Buenas Guahusi, Senador Telo Taitague. This is a public hearing, is now called to order, and the time now is 9 a.m. Actually, we're starting on time. And good morning to you all, and those who might be watching from home and those who are appearing before us to this committee, welcome to the People's House. For the record, today is Wednesday, June 11, 2025. The hearing will be conducted by myself, Senator Telo Taitague, Chairperson of the Committee on Economic Investment, Military Buildup, Regional Relations, Technology, Regulatory Affairs, Justice, Election, and Retirement. To comply with the open government law, notice of this hearing was disseminated to all senators and the public at large via email and published in KUAM Wednesday, June 4, 2025, and the second notice on Monday, June 9, 2025. Notice of this hearing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website and the Guam Government of Guam portal. I would like to welcome my colleagues who are joining us today, Senator Gumatautau and Senator Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes. Welcome, colleagues. We have the following bills on the agenda. The first bill is introduced by Senator Joseph Augustine, who I believe Senator Munoz-Barnes will be presenting this on his behalf, and that's Bill number 84-38 COR. The second bill, Bill number 99-38 COR, introduced by Senator Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, and the last bill is Bill 125-38, introduced by Senator Sean Gumatautau. Before we discuss these bills, I want to give some rules and of engagements for everyone to follow during this proceedings. I respectfully ask that we conduct ourselves professionally with respect to each other's opinions. When asked, please make sure you speak directly into the microphone and state your name and title for the record-keeping purposes. I ask that the panel members please remain in the room for questions for additional testimonies, but if you have to leave at any time, please notify myself or my staff to the left. Questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the bill on the agenda. Individuals who do not comply with these rules will be removed from the room. For my colleagues, copies of the legislation and documents received ahead of this hearing can be accessed through the Google Drive link that was emailed to all my colleagues. For the public, you can also find these documents located on the Guam Legislative website. So the first bill that we are going to be hearing is Bill 84-38 COR, again introduced by Senator Joseph Augustine. It's an act to add a new S2 3101, Article 1, Chapter 3 of Title 16 Guam Code annotated relative to adopting military certifications as qualifications for Guam chauffeur's license. A fiscal note was provided. Oh, I don't see a fiscal note yet at this time. Okay, I'll look into that on the fiscal note, but I don't see it here. It has not been provided, but this bill was also provided to legal counsel and was reviewed by our legal counsel with no recommended changes or amendments at this time. We did receive, oh, here, I have it here. It is the fiscal note provided by BBMR, Lester Carlson, and in his fiscal note, the enactment of this legislation may simplify the process of veterans obtaining chauffeur's license, but should not affect either issuance of the license or revenues that it generates. Furthermore, the Bureau finds that Bill 84-38, as currently written, is administrative in nature and poses no fiscal impact upon any funds of the government of Guam. Invitations were sent out for this legislation to Department of Revenue and Taxation, the Office of Veterans Affairs, and Department of Military Affairs. And at this time, I'd like to turn over the microphone to Senator Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes on behalf of Senator Joseph Augustine. You are now recognized, Senator. Thank you.
Sijus Masi, Madam Chair, and Manana Sijus. So a statement from Senator Joseph S. Augustine. Half a day, Madam Chair. my colleagues and all present today. I apologize for my absence today as I'm currently off island for a family matter. I appreciate your call of this hearing on Bill number 84-38. By this measure, we intend to adopt military certifications as qualifications for obtaining a Guam chauffeur's license. As a retired Army veteran, I understand that our service members undergo rigorous training that qualifies them to operate various commercial motor vehicles, including buses and tractors. This training is comprehensive and aligned with federal regulations that ensure safety, responsibility, and operational proficiency. To put it into perspective, the military driver's training program covers everything from accident avoidance to convoy operations and equipment maintenance. Through this training, our men and women in uniform acquire qualifications that often surpass the requirements of a civilian chauffeur's license. However, under current Guam law, these veterans must still go through the same licensing process as anyone else, despite their extensive training and certification. Madam Chair, our goal is simple: to recognize and adopt military qualifications that veterans already possess and make their transition to civilian careers easier, if not easier, but ready to serve our community even more. This bill proposes that any veteran with an honorable discharge verified through a DD-214 or an NGB-22 who have completed the military driver's training program should be eligible for a Guam chauffeur's license. This would include all relevant license endorsements based on their military qualifications. By adopting these military certifications, we eliminate the unnecessary redundancies and ensure that veterans can immediately put their expertise to work in Guam's workforce. This is a small but impactful change that will make a big difference in the lives of our veterans and the broader community. Madam Chair, it streamlines the process, saves time, and most importantly, allows our veterans to move forward in their civilian careers with dignity and respect. I ask my colleagues to support this legislation and help us assist our veterans with the smooth transition they deserve after serving our island and country. Sizus Masi, Senator Joe San Agustin.
Thank you, Senator Barnes. At this time, I'd like to invite up the following individuals who signed in to testify, and we will have Rose Eclavea. I can't read the last name, but if she's here. Rose, is Rose here? Okay, hi Rose. Art Minnow is also here. Of course, the director, good afternoon, Director Marie Lizama is here, and the Director of Veterans Affairs, Joe San Agustin. If you can come forward, please. And before we get started with the testimony, I also would like to recognize one of my chairmen of my committee, Senator Chris Barnett. Vice Chairman. Vice Chair, I'm promoting him. My Vice Chair, Senator Chris Barnett. He's here always to give us a smile and ease the tension. Okay, at this time, I will recognize the Director of Revenue and Taxation. If she has any comments she would like to make, I know that you don't have any written testimony for us at this time, and that you will be providing one. But if you would like, after the hearing, which we'll accept, but if you have any opening remarks at this time, please go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Taitague. Good morning, Senator Munoz Barnes, Senator Gumachachel again, and Senator Barnett. Buenas and Hafade. I'm Marie Lizama. I am the Director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. With regard to this particular bill, the agency has no additional comments really to make. We agree that it will streamline the process. We would just like to point out already that while having military certification doesn't necessarily equate to state endorsement, we already accept state endorsements at the agency. So, including or perhaps specifying the military will actually just remove any confusion with regard to that. But as you mentioned, Senator, we believe that there will be no fiscal impact should this bill become law. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Senator AC, I'm promoting everyone today. Joe San Augustine, Director of Veterans Affairs, you're recognized, sir. Do you have a written testimony?
If you like for me, I'm here on behalf of just making a verbal oral testimony, if that's okay.
Okay, and then if you can provide written testimony too as well to concur with your comments today, I greatly appreciate it and submit it to our office.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Okay, and now you are recognized, sir.
Yeah, so thank you for the desire for promoting me. Most appreciated, but Madam Chair and honorable senators of the 38th legislature, thank you for this, and thank you much for Mr. Joe San Augustine, Senator Joe, for introducing this and all the members that follow. In fact, it is true that our service members has gone through rigorous, very detailed, intense training for them to be able to certify, to meet the qualification of a self-first license. Without stretching this, I'm here in favor of this bill. There's only one amendment. Well, let me say this, it does not have any fiscal impact to GOVA. I would like to request a consideration that if we move forward with this approved, that any type of certificate that was acquired to include the DD-214 of any service member desiring a self-first license, that the certificates that they acquire from the military, in addition to the DD-214, to be certified as legit from my office. And not to make it more complicated, but in our effort to build our registry, and in an effort to make sure that that certificate is in fact legit and not just printed from a good color printer, I think it is our obligation to make sure that before we hand off good things to our well-deserved veterans. I know that our employees that are trying to employ them, they need a well-deserved verification that that is a legit certification. Okay, so otherwise, thank you everyone. This is rather easy. I foresee it going through. This is a plus for both the employees and the veterans or service members seeking employment here on Guam. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn over the microphone to Senator Barnes, representing Senator San Augustine, and then, of course, your own questions as well. Senator Barnes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really don't have any questions for the director, for either director right now, but just thank them for their support being here and knowing that as we proceed to assist the veterans, especially those who retire, that there is an opportunity to again go into their new careers after they retire. So this would help, and duly noted that working closely with you, Madam Chair, on if there needs to be a markup or just the amendment process to see if that can be included at the conversation with the sponsor of this bill. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Senator Sean Gumatautau, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to say welcome to my family watching in the mainland United States today. I see they're asking me to stay off my phone, but I'm trying to make sure I get it done and charged. But well, hello to them this morning. Madam Chair, for the record, I wanted to just say this, that the U.S. Department of Transportation, their Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, allows drivers with 2 years experience safely operating heavy military vehicles to obtain a commercial driver's license without taking the driver's test or the skills test. The program is available, as Marie had mentioned, is available in every state to include Guam. To date, more than 40,000 service members and veterans have taken advantage of this waiver program, and I want to thank them for their service. Military personnel can use the skills test waiver if currently licensed and are or were employed within the past 12 months in a military position requiring the operation of a military motor vehicle equivalent to a commercial motor vehicle. Madam Chair, recognizing that there are some jurisdictions that do limit chauffeur's license exemptions for veterans to those who were discharged within a year of their application, for example, what recommendations do veterans and maybe DRT have at this point with respect to establishing a validity period for the driver's training program certification that's referenced in Bill 84?
Please state your name for the record, too, before speaking.
Morning, Senator Barnes, Senator Gumatauta, Taitague, and Mr. Senator Barnett. My name is Art Meadow. I'm with the driver license supervisor at Department of Revenue and Tax. Currently with a chauffeurs with the military. What it is we did an in-house policy for CDLs, any state U.S. license coming in. With a CDL endorsement, we go ahead and give them the B endorsement, and the C is for tractor, trailer, the endorsement, and then D is for a bus. So depending what the applicant went in and paid for the class, and it's a stringent test that they go through with the written part and also with the heavy equipment side. So we made it where we'll go ahead and honor a U.S. state license with a CDL for us to go ahead and give them the Guam chauffeurs and also the endorsement for a tractor or a bus. And then we got to understand too the part, when we say chauffeurs for the veteran, we're really okay for that. But then, like what you say, what do they operate? A chauffeurs is to operate any flatbed, the weight of the vehicle. Chauffeurs is only, there's a limit to where you can operate. So with just a chauffeur's endorsement, you're not able to operate the bus, the D endorsement, and also the C endorsement. You need to bring in the equipment. You need to identify that you know how to operate the vehicle. So when we look at that, we need to define that part with the veterans for us to give them the chauffeurs, if it's just chauffeurs. Then again, like the certificate, we need to identify if these guys went through a stringent requirement for the operator for a bus or a tractor. Then if we identify that, then we need to look at what type of course and how do they go through to get certified. So basically it's making sure that when we license them and they're out there, they're capable of operating it safely.
So Art, so you're saying that the validity period that's in the proposal is more than enough for what they need to be doing with?
Yeah, because that's what I addressed to the director is like, we need to see what type of course and hours they put in for that, and also for the skill part, what kind of obstacle course and stuff do they go through?
Okay, no, and thank you for that. I appreciate your input on that, Art. And additionally, what other considerations do you believe should be put forward as potential amendments to Bill 84? I know that you're generally in support of it, but do we put a requirement that the proposed chauffeur's license waiver apply only to veterans demonstrating experience of at least 2 or 5, or this is 2 or 5 years, or maybe another length of time operating buses or other commercial vehicles that might be covered by a chauffeur's license?
Yeah, the author of that bill will address it more or clarify it with like what you see their background on the endorsement and the type of endorsement that we're going to give. If it's the chauffeurs is just a box truck, flatbed. They can operate a dump truck. But when you're going to move into heavier equipment and weight, you got the bus, 23 seats and up for a D endorsement for the bus. Then also the tractor trailer, it's a C endorsement. So basically, it's different from just getting a chauffeur's is just a written test. It's just that understanding of the laws and stuff on the highway. And that's just a B endorsement.
All right, thank you, Art. I appreciate your input, and I appreciate the effort of Reverend Tax with this. Madam Chair, I'm good on my side. Thank you for allowing me to ask questions this morning. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Senator Matauta. Before I turn it over to my Vice Chair, Senator Barnett, I'd like to recognize former Senator Fernando Estevez, who's here, and would like to make some comments and provide testimony. You're recognized, sir.
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like to say for this particular bill, I'm not here representing GURA. So I actually came to speak on another bill later. But in hearing the discussion—
Just recognize, state the name for the record.
Yes, Fernando Estevez. For this particular bill here as on my personal, as a personal matter. I wasn't tracking this bill, actually. This doesn't really fall in our wheelhouse, but hearing the discussion, I thought maybe I'd share and provide some insight. So for over 10 years, I was actually a certified master driver in the Army. I can't speak for the other services, but as a master driver, one of my responsibilities was training new drivers and licensing them. And I can say, concurring with the way they do their assessment, I can't speak for other services, but in my experience and professional background, that is the standard of the Army. You are licensed only on the particular piece of equipment. You've been trained on that specific piece of equipment. You've demonstrated, you've done a road test on it. And this change was done, I want to say, 12 years ago or so, because the #1 cause of accidents and safety were motor vehicle accidents. So it was a response in that, a revamping of the program to make sure soldiers were trained and things like that. Because it does matter, right? Knowing the piece of equipment you're operating. Not every box truck is the same. The height matters, understanding where the center of balance is, understanding what your speed restrictions are. So I thought I'd just provide for the committee some personal experience as it relates to the type of training, again, speaking only from my experience in the Army, that service members get and how they're actually licensed on equipment, so that if it's to be reciprocal, right, and could, be in consideration for operating larger vehicles with a Class B, commercial vehicles on the roads, that maybe should understand what that actually means when somebody's licensed with the military operator's license.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. At this time, Senator Barnett, you are recognized.
Bananas Siduos, Madam Chair. Good morning to the people of Guam, and Siduos Masi to the panel for your testimony this morning. I kind of just want to also take a moment to congratulate the Guam Senior Little League All-Stars as they beat American Samoa 22-0 yesterday. There's a tournament ongoing now, and so Guam is going to be facing the Philippines at 1 p.m. at the Derrida Sports Complex. So good luck to the Guam boys, and I hope to see them in the championship. Madam Chair, Siduos Masi, for the opportunity to speak on the bill, which I think I generally support. And, just based off Mr. Meno's comments, I'm kind of wondering if we tweak this a little bit to target some of those, like, for example, the license that allows you to operate the buses. So we get veterans who want to come back, and maybe they can help Mr. Ariola sitting in the back there with the shortage of bus drivers or other types of heavy equipment operation, or the big rigs. So yeah, I think I generally support the bill, Madam Chair. I don't really have any questions on it. So Sidus Masi for the opportunity to speak, and Viva Guam.
Viva. Thank you, Senator Barnett. As for myself, I just have a couple questions, or maybe just even one, regarding the additional administrative or training needs for rev and tax in order to DMV, especially to provide for this particular legislation. Is there going to be any additional staffing needed or training needed for staff to be able to comply to this legislation?
It'll be based with the author of the bill, and then also working with the Veterans Office and coming up with them providing the documents for us to certify or to give out the endorsement. So it's just for us to get an understanding of what certificate they're going to provide to us, and then get a better understanding on like the type of training that they actually went through. So it's just getting an understanding in that whole perspective and then moving forward.
So you're going to see any delays in that, or can this be as smooth as somebody? I mean, this is a lot faster than having to go through the whole process for somebody who's just being trained and then putting through the testing that you require at DMV. But staff you should be able to cover this with no problem.
Yes.
Okay, no additional staffing, so no fiscal impact, because we know how strapped rev and tax is right now. And whatever we can do to fast track some areas that, seem very, minuscule in part, that this body can do to move forward. So thank you, everyone, for your testimony. Greatly appreciate you being here. I know that you're here for some other testimonies, so we'll get to the my next. Okay. So at this time, Bill 84-38 has been heard, and the additional testimony will be provided to my office within 5 to 10 days, depending, because we have a funny feeling we're going to be working with Veterans Affairs as well as DMV in order to provide this application per se and registration, which is very important. So other than that, we will now turn it over to our next bill that on the agenda. And Bill 84 has been heard, 8-38. The next bill is Bill 99-38, introduced by Senator Tina Rose Munoz Barnes. And give me 1 second here. Okay. So this bill was introduced again by Senator Tina Rose Munoz Barnes, an act to add a new 3118 and 3118.1 and 3118.2 to Chapter 3 of Title 16 Guam Code Annotated, relative to authorizing the Department of Revenue and Taxation to enter into driver's license reciprocity agreements with foreign countries. The legislation has received a fiscal note on April 9, 2025. The information was obtained according to BBMR. The information was obtained from the report revenue generated from all driver's license issues as part of the Guam Highway Fund during the past 5 fiscal years from FY20 through FY 2024. It has a spreadsheet below, or a graph below, of fiscal years of revenues. So in FY 2020, the revenue was $612,151. FY 21 was $704,404. FY 22 was $1,106,498. And FY 23 was $958,872. And FY 24 was $859,379. It should be noted that although the above information indicates the total revenues generated from the issuance of driver's license by the DRT for corresponding fiscal years, the figures do not indicate how much of the amounts represent driver's license fees for licenses from foreign countries. Additionally, absent revenue amounts generated from driver's license fees specific to license issued from foreign countries, as well as comment from DRT regarding the potential for additional operation expenses to establish the agreements with foreign countries, adopted the rules and regulations required from this bill, and oversee the compliance with the Real ID Act. The Bureau is unable to ascertain the physical impact of this proposed legislation. That is from BBMR. Legal counsel has reviewed the bill, and legal counsel has no recommendation changes at this time. Invitations were sent to the Department of Revenue and Taxation, the Taipei Economic Cultural Office, Consulate of Republic of Korea, Consulate of Japan in Hagåtña, Philippine Consulate in Hagåtña, Federated States of Micronesian Consulate, Palau Consulate, Honorary Council of New Zealand, Honorary Council of Italy, and Honorary Council of France. Has Reverend Tax provided written testimony at this time, or is that at a later date?
I'm sorry, ma'am. With regard to fiscal impact?
No, just your
Okay.
testimony for today's.
No, it's
in
just,
written.
it's going to be verbal. And
Verbal?
then we will follow up with written.
Yes, please. It's
Yes.
important that you concur with your findings today or the questions, and maybe incorporate into your written testimony any concerns that we may have as well.
Correct.
That you can
Yes.
place in that testimony. So thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to recognize, before recognizing those who are here testifying, Senator Muñoz Barnes, you're recognized on your bill.
Madam Chair, and to all the council generals here, thank you so very much for being here this morning, for your presence. Truly appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to present this bill. Bill number 99-38 CUR is straightforward yet meaningful proposal. It authorizes the Department of Revenue and Taxation to enter into driver's license reciprocity agreements with foreign governments, modeled after successful legislations already adopted in other United States jurisdictions. These agreements will allow eligible foreign nationals to exchange their valid driver's licenses for a Guam license without the need for redundant testing. Likewise, they open the door for our residents abroad to benefit from the same courtesy. Madam Chair, we are part of a vast and vibrant blue continent, a region defined by shared values and cooperation, and Guam has long welcomed students, military personnel, professionals, and visitors from trusted regional partners like Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines. Our island sits at the heart of the region's economy, and we are a transit hub, an education hub, and a trusted partner. And it's only fitting that our laws reflect Guam's role as a leader and a connector in the Pacific. Madam Chair, this idea is not new. States like Maryland, Texas, Arizona, and Vermont have already recognized the high standards of driver licensing systems in Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. And we are not reinventing the wheel. We are simply adopting a proven practical approach to improve service and reduce bureaucracy while strengthening regional ties. This bill also honors the relationships that define our shared blue continent, and it positions Guam as more efficient and welcoming and more diplomatically engaged, qualities that align with who we are and who we strive to be as an island community. And while the technical details of these agreements will rightfully fall within the expertise of the Department of Revenue and Taxation, I welcome further dialogue to ensure clarity, especially regarding the surrender and return of applicants' foreign-issued license. So Bill 99-38 is a reflection of our island's strong commitment to building meaningful relationship with our foreign partners, and I know that small steps like this can go a long way in building trust and honoring the spirit of cooperation that defines us as island people. So, Madam Chair, I ask my colleagues for their support on this measure and look forward to hearing the testimony that's out there from the community. Si Jules Masi and Sana Masi for giving me the opportunity to speak on this measure that I authored. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And at this time, those who've signed up, of course, we have Department of Revenue and Taxation here again, once again, Rosa Clave, Balhaja, right? I couldn't remember. The first signature on 84 was a bit different from, now I can see it. So it is Balhaja, correct? Clave Balhaja. Okay. And then, of course, Art is here, Menno, and then, of course, our director, Marie Lizama. If there's anyone else who would like to come forth and testify, please go ahead and step up to the table if you would like to testify. If not, then we will continue. Okay, then we will go ahead and continue. Director Lizama, you are recognized.
Hello, Marie Lizama again, Director of Department of Revenue and Taxation. With regard to Bill 99-38, the staff, we had a discussion on this, and we note that there is already Public Law 27-48 that recognizes or addresses license holders from specific countries. We do know, though, that Bill 98 seeks to remove the current process that in which we handle the license holders from those certain countries. I believe the process right now is they're permitted to drive for 30 days on the island. However, they must register with the Department of Revenue and Taxation, pay a $25 fee, and then be able to drive for at least a year, and then take the appropriate tests with regard to obtaining a Guam driver's license. I think just some of the comments that we we were kind of mulling over, or the thoughts that we were mulling over was the bill, I believe, does not, unlike some of the states mentioned in the text of the bill, most of those states have an agreement or reciprocity with one or several countries. This particular one opens it up to all foreign countries, with the exception of those that are listed or on the terrorist list, if I'm not mistaken. And so, we just have a concern. The staff just has concern with regard to that. We feel that perhaps the reciprocity should be limited to countries that perhaps either have an official office here in Guam, so that we can, because one of the criteria is to be able to provide a notarized translation of the holder's license, and we want to, the staff had expressed concern about possible fraud, in this day and age, and so we feel that perhaps should be discussed further. Perhaps limiting the holders or nationals to those whose country already has a presence in the form of either a consulate, or an official, some sort of official office. I think the other thing would be, the onus would be on the staff to kind of monitor which countries are on the terrorist list, and so forth. And, while that may seem like possibly a quick check, we also feel that it warrants additional discussion, And then, we also talked about the fact that, perhaps the Guam Police Department can kind of chime in on the statistics involving foreign nationals and their driving incidents, if there are any. So that's just some of the things that we've discussed, and we would, of course, kind of organize our thoughts into an actual or an official testimony from the agency. Okay.
Thank you, Director Lizama. And you're absolutely correct. I think one of the individuals that we were hoping to invite, but it didn't make our list of invitations, excuse me, is the Guam Police Department. And we will be reaching out to them as well, to
Yes.
get their insight as well. Thank
Yeah.
you for that suggestion.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
that discussion came about because we had recalled several incidents wherein nationals of certain foreign countries, obviously they drive on the opposite side of the road and had perhaps been involved in accidents here, just perhaps with not being familiar with Guam's roads.
Actually, there was an accident quite some time ago, I think several years ago, up in Talofofo, the lookout area. There was a vehicle driving on the opposite road, in that snake road, and you couldn't see, of course, coming around the corner, and they were on the opposite, and there was a head-on collision. So, yeah, I do remember an incident like that happening as well. So, yes, we will definitely reach out to them. And at this time, I'd like to turn over the microphone to Senator Munya Barnes. You are recognized.
Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity. And I think I just want to be clear that this measure before us is not meant to serve tourists, many of whom are allowed to drive on Guam using their foreign driver's license for up to 30 days following their arrival, right? So this bill intends to better serve our neighbors who move to Guam for, and I will say it again, for work or for education, or those who find themselves on our island for more than just a vacation. So regarding Bill 99's fiscal note, this bill does not prohibit you folks, the Department of Revenue and Taxation, from assessing necessary fees to implement this law. In fact, this bill authorizes the department to promulgate any rules and regulations it requires to administer this bill if it should pass. And the measure specifically includes language that states any driver looking to receive a Guam license through this proposal must fulfill any additional requirements as determined by the Department of Revenue and Taxation, which I believe includes any fees promulgated lawfully by you folks, DRT. So, Madam Chair, while I understand the concerns of our counselor partners, these can be addressed in the specific agreements outlined in this bill, which affects just their country. So that means, for example, the Philippines would like to include a provision that requires original Filipino driver's licenses held in trust by DRT and must be given back to the Philippine citizen before their departure from Guam. Then that can be negotiated. That means if Japan wants to ensure a person holding a Guam driver's license must pass an exam before receiving their reciprocal driver's license, that can be negotiated. Perhaps the committee during the markup process can consider enshrining these concerns and provisions that outlines how these two party agreements are considered and administered. But the point of authorizing separate agreements for each partner country is to make sure that their unique and specific concerns and laws can be addressed, and that the country's restrictions are not forced upon everyone. So I do have a question for just two. The first is on item 4 on section 3 of the bill, that foreign drivers must also fulfill any additional requirements as determined by the department before receiving their reciprocal license. Do you agree that this provision allows you to promulgate any necessary fees to offset the cost of this new program, similar to the fees you assess to issue Guam driver's license under the current law? To Marie.
Thank you, Senator. I guess we were perhaps confused over the fact that on page 2 it says that we are authorized to enter into a reciprocity agreement, and it says the department shall not, I'm sorry, without having, and that's not page 2, okay, license, it says to exchange their licenses for a Guam driver's license of an equivalent class without requiring additional written vision or skills testing. And I think part of the process that we currently have right now, as I mentioned, is, and Art perhaps can speak more to this, is we do require the testing. And so I know that kind of conflicts perhaps, or maybe we are given an out, if you will, on number 4. But that's where the concern that we had initially was the fact that, you know, we wouldn't be able to give them a written, a vision, or, you know, perhaps a skills test, you know, on there. So perhaps I can have Art explain
Please.
the process.
Please.
Yeah, morning. Art Meno with the driver license again. When we went through the bill, I brought it up that because Guam, U.S. territory, and we're not linked with those jurisdictions, and getting a better understanding on what process do they go in order for them to get certified to be issued a license. With Guam and with the U.S., we're going through the graduated process to obtain a license. It requires 32 hours of classroom training, which they go over the laws and for the knowledge, for the understanding with the laws out in the road. And then also we have the 8 hours behind the wheel where they prove that they understand and can operate safely the vehicle. So with Guam and us not being linked with other jurisdiction or state, and then with the foreign, we're not sure how they go with their stringent tests and how to obtain that license. That's the only concern. And then with Guam, anybody coming in to schedule a written test first time to go through the graduate process to pick up a learner's permit must do a eye exam. We're making sure they meet the 20/40 visual requirement. And then also this pertains for renewals of a license, first time coming in. That'll be the test that we need to give to make sure they're okay to where they can, we know their vision is good, because on part of the law, it even states on the law about, what do you call this, any medical issues with the applicant, and then we can question it and question them to provide a doctor's note that they're okay to operate a motor vehicle. So just those are the areas that we need to clarify. That'll be all.
Marie, do you have anything, or Rose, do you have anything else, or that's it?
That'll be all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, just one more question, and then I'll, if you allow me closing, then if there's anything else. Marie, in your experience, or anyone on the panel, what is your estimate for the number of licenses issued to foreign citizens each year? So each fiscal year, each year, however your counting is it from January to December, or September, October to September? What is the, I guess January to December, what is the number of licenses issued? Do you have that number ready, available?
We didn't bring that with us, but we can certainly get that information for you.
That would help.
Yes.
That would
yes.
help, so we can see what's.
Yes, and I apologize, Senator. I do have, with regard to the tourists and, the driving, and so forth, yeah, perhaps that kind of got, muddled into the discussion, or, perhaps shouldn't have been part of the discussion. But the point we were trying to make really, or in that discussion was, when even people from the U.S. come, into Guam, What the department does typically is we request, or I apologize, I think for some countries, we request for an abstract, right? I believe that's what Art calls it. And the abstract really will give, it's kind of like a driving record, or just to ensure that they're free and clear, from any of that, any incidents perhaps, or just to give a picture of their driving history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And-
Thank you, Ms. Marie. So, Madam Director. So, Madam Chair, just to clarify what was said by the Director, I want to make sure that we note that this bill is not to remove the 30-day tourist program. This is a new program in addition to the current law. Also, like I said earlier, nothing is forcing DRT to negotiate with all countries in the world, and it is up to the department to choose which countries to negotiate with. So again, this is an addition, not a taking away from the current statute that's in place. So Madam Chair, thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity to share this presentation with you, but also for you hearing this bill and seeing how we can move forward, even if there's a need for a markup, up to you. So I yield back to you and say, Sinamasi.
You're very welcome, Senator Barnes. Senator Gumatauta, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to begin by first thanking the Consular Corps and the Consular Corps team for being here. This is a very important measure for their citizens. And I just want to tell you personally, thank you for your service to your respective countries, but also your continued partnership with the people of Guam. And again, your being here means this is a really important measure for your citizens of your respective countries and nations. Madam Chair, I'm excited about the opportunity that Guam will join Maryland, Arizona, New Jersey, Texas, and Vermont as having a driver's license reciprocity program with foreign countries, and I think it's absolutely important today in 2025 that we continue to foster such relationships. Madam Chair, my question to Reverend Tax is I want to have a couple of questions, but aside from visiting students, I have plenty of students in my role at the University of Guam. I see them all the time. Aside from those students, professionals, many that might support our Consular Corps or other industry in Guam, and military personnel, we do have visiting teams here throughout the year to support different missions or different types of exercises. What specific occupation or purposes should Bill 99 target, particularly if the primary objectives of the legislation is to bypass redundant tests, help ease transition of visiting students, professionals, and service members, streamline government efficiency caused by the testing, fostering greater diplomatic relationships? Is there any data available from our Reverend Tax regarding the number of, we can call them temporary, non-military Guam residents who might be impacted by this proposal?
You mentioned college students, right, sir? Did
Yes,
you?
ma'am.
Okay. I don't think we have, I mean, we can certainly track the number, we keep data likely on the number of abstracts that we request, but beyond that, I don't believe we have any other data.
I think, Marie, if we could, and this is for the committee, if you're able to provide even a short list of what that might be, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
With that said, recognizing the challenges that we face already with fraudulent documents, which in a few cases have allowed convicted non-U.S. citizens to re-enter Guam using different names and in violation of immigration and local court orders, what information is available maybe that you can offer from other U.S. jurisdictions recommending the steps that can and should be taken to detect and prevent the submission of fraudulent information and ultimately support public safety on our roadways?
Okay.
Okay, once again, Art Meadows, the supervisor for DRT, driver license. When they come in and we look at the applicants with their application that they filled out, and we make sure that the documents are all originals, they're not copied. If it's a copied, it's a certified stamp that it's coming from an original. What we look at is for any foreign applicants that are coming in, it requires that they need to have that license for 5 years or more in order for us to entertain it. And if you're coming from Philippines, the LTO, Quezon City LTO office required that during COVID, they used to mail it in. Every applicant that's on Guam, they request, they'll mail it into the department. And then when COVID hit, they started emailing it to us. They wanted control because a lot of them could fabricate their documents. So these are certification abstracts that are coming in from Philippines. It's provided by the LTO Quezon main area. So like if the applicant stays out in the province, the request from that province, DMV, they send the request to Quezon, and then Quezon emails us the certification. What we do is verify that that information is matching the hard copy of their license. And then also they provide a social security card. It's required. If they don't have, they need to give us a letter of denial from the Social Security office that they're just here where they can't obtain a SS. And it's just every year they need to provide that. Their license is good for a whole year. Yeah, those are for temporary status. And then also we issue out the real ID requirements. Then you provide the documents for the real ID site, then we can make it a real ID.
All right, thank you, Art. And I think that's pretty important insight considering. Now, I mean, I know on the real ID side, if our residents have challenges already in getting those documents from their respective village mayors, I can only imagine that someone that's going to come and make an attempt to get a real ID from a foreign country might be even a little bit more challenging. I think that's also what the rule, at least in terms of the rulemaking, you have a little bit of time and the ability to be able to do that and to kind of root it out. Marie, you had a comment?
Oh, I just wanted to add that, we are members of the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. And so that organization actually puts out, helpful information with regard to how other jurisdictions are handling certain things. So we can certainly take a deeper look at what they offer and, just kind of put that in our comments as well.
No, and that's a very much appreciated. Thank you so much, Marie, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the time.
You're very welcome, Senator Gumatata. It's also recognized that some of the information that I looked into, we found some states that actually have this reciprocity, like Maryland, for instance, allows, I believe, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan that they provide this reciprocity. Texas provides similar to Taiwan and South Korea and New Jersey as well. So you mentioned you're part of this membership. Maybe you can look at their information on how they move forward. We don't have that information. So it'd be very helpful when you submit into your testimony, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Include that on
Yes.
those particular states. Senator Barnett, you are recognized, sir.
Sidus Masi, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak on the bill and ask questions. I really want to thank Director Lizama and Mr. Meno, as well as you, Ms. Eclavea, Sidus Masi, for your very insightful testimony. And Director, I'd ask that you please provide it in writing because I think it's going to be critical when we take this bill to the markup meeting, as I really want to ensure that all the concerns that you and Mr. Meno have mentioned
Yes.
are vetted and put into the bill, or that we work on the bill so that those concerns are addressed.
Will do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I guess my first question here is, I was looking at some of the testimony, and I'm kind of surprised that, based on appearances, it looks like our consulate friends support the measure. But other than a couple of written testimonies submitted, I'm surprised they didn't provide oral testimony in support of the bill. But there was a concern from the Philippine consulate And it says, our initial observation on this issue in particular is that we note in the case of Filipinos applying for a Guam driver's license, they're required to surrender their foreign license to the DMV. For Philippine driver's licenses, which now have a validity of up to 10 years, we would appreciate clarification on whether these Philippine licenses are returned to the holders upon their departure from the island. So I guess first, maybe Mr. Meno can answer, what is the current process? And if this bill is passed, I guess, and these Philippine license holders surrender the license, then what happens when they go back to the Philippines?
Okay, what it is the way we process that is we retain the documents with the application. We put it on file. After the retaining holding period, we destroy the documents. Basically, we can come to an agreement on that. If they're going to leave, then we can be able to go ahead and return the document back. Because with Japan, all we do is we stamp the part of the license, and all we collect is the certification abstract, and they keep their Japan license. So we can probably work something with the department on that part.
Actually, what I wanted to add is currently, if you're a U.S. citizen, you live in another state, you come here, you switch out to a Guam driver's license, and the bill does indicate that it's for people who are relocating here, then we should just treat it the way we do residents from the states, in that we remove that and we switch it out for a Guam one. That way they don't have two credentials. So I don't see, unless there's a compelling argument, I don't see how we should allow the foreign nationals to retain their credentials when we don't even allow our fellow stateside residents to do the same.
Thank you for that, Director Lizama. And then, the bill's intent is to encourage driver's license reciprocity agreements, and so I'm not sure if any of the Consulate Corps or maybe the chair and the committee can find out, does Guam have these agreements with these foreign nations? So when we, as Guam license holders, go to these foreign nations, is it truly reciprocal that we are able to, change our Guam license in for a Korean license or a FSM license or Palau license or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, because if they're only here for about a year, no more than a year, they register with us. They pay $25, and then they're able to, use the license. And they keep their license. We don't exchange, we don't take it and destroy it. So, but that's only 1 year, and it's not renewable. So that's part of the process. Right?
Thank you for that. I guess we could do that research in the committee.
Yeah, I was going to say, Madam Director, if you can, please look into the other foreign countries. If Guam, like our license, if we go to their countries, do they take our license away? Or do they allow the 1 year grace period, et cetera, like that? That'd be interesting also if you can put that into the
Right.
Your testimony.
And then I guess my next point that I wanted to raise was this, the bill's language contains that we would not be granting reciprocity to any nations, countries that are on the terror watch list, right? My only issue with that is that there are levels, terror watch list, and then there's a category called countries of particular concern, and in that category is the Republic of China, for example. And, just speaking for the people of Guam, I'm not sure I want to do backflips to trade licenses with China when they're threatening to annihilate our population with the Guam killer missile. So I think that's an amendment that I would proffer either in committee or on the floor, that we expand the limitations here. Just, to be honest, right, if we're going to be threatened day in and day out by the military might of the Republic of China, then I don't understand why we want to reciprocate with this license agreement. And then the last point I want to bring up, Madam Chair, is, when we do these measures and you hear senators talk about, they're doing it in this state and this is how many states are doing it, I would just like to note, again, for the record, as was mentioned by one of the other senators, that I believe there are only five states that do this. And so whenever I look at measures that are adopted in the continental U.S. and whether or not we apply them here, to Guam, I think it's always a good indicator as to how many states, because we're not a state, how many states participate in these programs. And then I start to ask, okay, why is it only 5 states? So I know that you're a member of the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, so maybe you can kind of look at that, because I think it's there's probably some intel there. You know, why are only 5 states? I mean, God bless their hearts, but is there an issue that 45 other states have that we should kind of examine when we look to, you know, vote and implement this bill should it pass? So, Sidus Masi, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to raise those concerns about the bill.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Senator Barnett. I really don't have very many questions. I put some input into this. I'm looking forward to your written testimony moving forward, and of course, the questions asked, if you can incorporate that into your testimony. We will, reach out to GPD also as well for that information. So, that being said, I'd like to allow Senator Barnes to close on her bill. You're recognized.
Thank you, and Sidus Masi, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity to close. And just for the record, before I do my final closing, I wanted to make sure that Director Marie, that nothing in this bill, like I said earlier, would prevent you from getting an abstract on the applicant. So I just wanted to make that clear for the record also. But Madam Chair, Bill 99 for me is more than just a driver's licenses, right? It's about recognizing Guam's place in the region and honoring the partnerships that shape our future. And with thoughtful implementation, I think that this legislation can make life easier for those who call Guam home, and even if just for a short time, while reinforcing our ties across our blue continent. So with that being said, I want to thank you folks, especially the Department of Parks and Recs that testified, and those that will provide feedback. And if there's any other questions that is needed on this measure, you're more than welcome to send it to the Oversight Chair. And if we receive anything, Madam Chair, we'll definitely work closely with you. But and also thank the Counselor Corps members that are here and continue to work closely with our beautiful island. So, Undankuluna Sidus Masi, and Madam Chair, thank you definitely for hearing this bill rather quickly. So I truly, truly appreciate it. Sana Masi, and I hope to work closely with you on the markup or the amendments to help strengthen this bill. Sana Masi.
You're very welcome, Senator Barnes. And at this time, if there's no further questions, Bill 99-38 COR has been heard. We will now move to the next bill on the agenda, which is Bill 125-38 COR. This is introduced by Senator Sean Gumatautau. It's an act to add a new 70133 and renumber the existing 70133 to 70134, all of Chapter 70, Title 11, Guam Code annotated, relative to expanding housing availability by authorizing the Department of Revenue and Taxation to issue temporary business license for residential units that meet inspection requirements established by a certified home inspector licensed by the government of Guam. And at this time, I would like to turn over the microphone to Senator Gumatautau, the author of the legislation. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair, for allowing me this time to introduce Bill 125-38 COR, which, if approved, will help alleviate Guam's housing shortage by creating opportunities for property owners to rent out their residential units under the authority of a temporary business license. With the help of the Guam Association of Realtors, I drafted Bill 125 with the intent of helping to expand the housing inventory in Guam through the creation of a temporary business license. Madam Chair, while it has been brought to my attention that property owners may be interested in having Bill 125 extend to room rentals, the bill as drafted focuses on residential units. If approved, Bill 125 allows a residential unit, such as a single-family home or apartment or condominium unit, to be rented out if the property meets inspection requirements established by a certified home inspector licensed by the government of Guam. A certified home inspector means an individual who is certified by the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors or another similar certifying authority recognized by the government of Guam. Madam Chair, Bill 125 mandates a residential unit to meet the inspection requirements established by a certified home inspector, including those related but are not limited to electrical, plumbing, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning or HVAC, environmental, security and egress, and the exterior condition of the residential dwelling. On the recommendation of the GAR, Bill 125 requires that a copy of the certification of suitability for occupancy issued by a certified home inspector be provided to the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation. Property owners will be given up to 1 year to complete any pending business license requirements. Madam Chair, Bill 125 recognizes that based on information made available by the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority and the real estate industry leaders, that Guam faces a demand for 9,908 additional housing units driven by population growth, pent-up demand, and hidden homelessness. At a Society of American Military Engineers Guam Post Forum held in November of 2024, Cornerstone Valuation Guam, Inc. told those in attendance that what used to be $213,600 for that home costs $420,000 in today's dollars. GURA has stated publicly that outside of housing supply and demand issues, the overseas housing allowance provided to military service members is artificially inflating the cost of housing in Guam. According to a Pacific Island Times report, in December of 2024, Guam's apartment units, especially those targeting local residents, are at near full capacity, and the lack of new housing supply has pushed rental rates for a basic two-bedroom unit to around $1,250 a month, while military subsidized tenants pay an average of $2,450 a month for similar units. Madam Chair, further complicating Guam's housing inventory is the lack of available units for the thousands of H-2B workers who are required for civilian and U.S. Department of Defense construction projects, according to the Guam Department of Labor during a recent public hearing on legislation related to the Manpower Development Fund. As of May 2025, GDOL received approval for 9,000 H-2B workers, but only 4,913 were available for construction projects due to a limited inventory of workforce housing in Guam. Madam Chair, Bill 125 provides an option for property owners to rent out their homes, a decision that comes with responsibilities that are no less important than those tied to a non-temporary business license. The bill provides that if a residential unit is found in violation of any of Guam's real property use laws or any health and safety regulations after a temporary business license is issued, the temporary business license shall be immediately revoked. All provisions in Guam law relating to fair housing and taxes, including income taxes, property taxes, gross receipts taxes, insurance, and rentals, would apply to temporary business licenses, and the government of Guam shall not be held liable for any injury, death, or legal or financial obligation arising from a rental unit temporarily licensed under the proposed law. Madam Chair, Bill 125 is a responsible proposal to help increase housing inventory across our island. Through this bill, property owners will be able to generate much-needed income by providing other families with safe and affordable housing options. Sidus Masi, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to open on this bill, and I look forward to the discussion today.
You're very welcome, Senator Gumentalto. And all those here to testify on Bill 12538, please come forward and take a seat at the table. In the meantime, while that is being conducted, we received a fiscal note from BBMR on May 6, 2025. And in the comments made, while the Bureau recognized this proposed legislation will have an impact on the revenues collected and expenditure of DRT, absent permanent information from DRT to include A, the potential number of temporary business licenses that will be issued, B, the potential additional revenues to be generated from the issuance of such temporary business license, and C, the cost breakdown of additional resources the DRT will need to implement the proposed legislation if enacted. The Bureau cannot determine an approximate fiscal impact at this time. The bill was also given to our legal counsel and reviewed by them with no recommendation, changes, or amendments at this time. The invitations were sent out to Department of Revenue and Taxation, Department of Public Works, Guam Urban Renewal Authority, Guam Housing, and the Association of Realtors. However, we did receive testimony from Guam Housing stating that they have no, what's the word? They don't have any meat in this at all, meat in this game, so they did not provide anything at this time. However, I do recommend that Revenue Tax, based on the fiscal note received by BBMR, that this information, A, B, and C, will be provided to the committee along with your written testimony. I believe there was no written testimony provided at this time, oral testimony. However, I appreciate that after the hearing, you can combine all the comments that are being made as well as the questions and incorporate that in a written testimony to be provided to the committee chair. I appreciate that. And at this time, please identify who you are. Speak directly into the microphone before you begin your testimony. Director, you are recognized. Marie, you're recognized.
Again, buenas, everyone. My name is Marie Lizama. I am the Director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. And typically, DRT is really just at the end part of the process, right? We issue the license after all clearances have been made. And we appreciate that the bill's author, acknowledges certain parts in there with regard to tax. Because that's typically a huge hurdle, for a lot of these applicants who seek a first-time license or perhaps a renewal of such a license. So we do appreciate that. We initially just took the bill and kind of went through that, and then we discovered, and that's assuming that the person or the applicant does not have an issue with taxes, with outstanding taxes. So some of the things that we did come up with, and first and foremost, after we had done this exercise, we said, wait a minute, if the delay is really at the inspection site, then perhaps it would be easier if the certified housing inspectors would be willing to kind of be part of DPW's process. Again, simply because we're typically the end, we're at the end of the process. We're the ones that just issue the license upon clearances having been given. So with regard, to that, and I have to say that the staff did not initially find that there would be a significant fiscal impact with regard to the bill, and that's really just because we're indicating temporary on the license and non-renewable, and so forth. And I'm just going to highlight some of the comments that arose from that discussion. Perhaps, and again, assuming that we're going to end up, with the certified housing inspectors and so forth, I will go right on into what we kind of went through with regard to the bill. But one thing that kind of just really pops out at us is the fact that when the temporary business license, there's that 1 year period. If they don't meet the provisions or the requirements for a permanent business license, we would like for you to include language to make it clear that once the temporary business license expires, that it's permanent, and the owner may not receive yet another temporary business license for the same unit. And instead, the owner would have to commence the process to apply for a permanent business license and meet those requirements. Otherwise, we feel that the owners may abuse the system and keep applying for these temporary business licenses. So if we could get language in there that would actually specify that, we feel that would be good. The other thing, and some of these things are really just, again, this one hails back to the inspections. And, we just, while that may be something Director Arreola can talk to, we just feel that, there may be an issue with standards not being uniform. And so that is what we have here. We actually prefer that the word shall be changed to may. And while it's not, shall can certainly work, we just prefer the flexibility and protection that the discretionary word may will provide. And so I think the only other thing really, okay, so with regard to revoking a the temporary business license, it's not clear to us who's supposed to report that to DRT. Is it the owner? Is it the regulating agency? And also, it's not clear if there's an appeal for this immediate revocation. Would that be the same as that of a permanent business license? So that's just some of the things that have arisen from or that arose from our discussion. Okay, so again, I will organize these discussion points and submit it in written form. Okay.
Thank you, Director. Director Arreola.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Vince Arreola. I'm the director at the Department of Public Works. I write in support of Bill number 12538, which calls for a temporary business license for residential units that meet certain inspection requirements and approved by a certified home inspector licensed by the government of Guam. While the business license portion of the bill is the responsibility of the Department of Revenue and Taxation, our agency, DPW, will be responsible for inspecting the residential unit. The bill also calls for DPW inspectors to be certified by the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors, INTERNACHI. My understanding is that certification by INTERNACHI can be done through online training, courses, and exams. Currently, none of our inspectors are INTERNACHI certified, so if this bill becomes enacted as written, our inspectors will have to take the INTERNACHI online courses to earn a home inspection certification. Our 6 inspectors that we currently have on staff have many years of experience, from 8 years to 40 years. They've received training in the International Building Code and specific disciplines such as residential, structure, plumbing, electrical, and architecture. They've also been trained in commercial plan reading, understanding, and comprehension. Conceptually, the agency supports the intent of Bill 125, and we look forward to assisting the committee in moving it forward. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of the bill, and I'm available to answer any questions, hopefully.
Thank you, Director. Former Senator Esteves, you are recognized, and you are actually the deputy,
Yes.
Deputy of GURA, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Half a day, Madam Chair. Fernando Esteves, Deputy Director of the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority. I oversee the housing programs of the agency. We're not testifying in support or opposition to the bill. It doesn't necessarily impact GURA in a direct way, but we do appreciate the sponsor removing a previously objectionable portion of the bill, which would imply that GURA does pre-inspections, which we don't. So we're appreciative of that. Though we don't have enough data, we don't keep that data with landlords as to the degree of difficulty in receiving a business license. I mean, we're still able to lease up pretty high on our vouchers. So we don't know that there's a problem. We're not saying that there isn't, so we're neutral with that. We do have somewhat of an operational, which may be an operational concern on our end. So normally when somebody's going to be leasing to a Section 8 tenant, they've already, one of the things we verify is the business license. We don't distinguish what kind of license it is. If they are legally licensed to operate, we honor that. So whether that's a temporary license or, going through the full business license process. So we don't have an objection to that. The concern is that if they're temporary licensed and they don't get their full license, and we find out, when we do the compliance check, if payments were made to that landlord, we're going to have to recoup, and it can ultimately result with us taking them to court if they don't have money to pay. I can't speak to the landlord's ability to pay at that point in time. All I can speak to is the limited legal capacity we have to bring those civil cases to it. We only have one attorney, and so that could really bog down operational capacity. Again, it's just forecasting a potential. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. We just want to try to be thorough and provide our due diligence is understanding potential impact. But at this time, we're not opposed to the measure at all. Subject to your questions.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Also, testimony wasn't submitted by you as well, so if we can also get written testimony on the comments that you made today and some of the questions that may prevail here, that you can incorporate that in there so you can answer them and put it in writing. I appreciate
Yes.
it. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. My good friend, Felix, Chris Felix, you are recognized at this time.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Christopher Felix, member of the Guam Association of Realtors. And speaking on behalf of them and myself personally, I'd like to thank the chair, Senator Gumatata, very much for this bill, and the other senators, Chris and Tina. I think we have a problem. We support the intent of this bill very, very much. We begged for this bill, but we have a problem with this inspector clause in section. The director, Vince, thinks that this bill is referring to his people, and we are thinking that this section of the bill for inspectors deals with third-party inspectors, that we have to get it inspected by a third party if we don't have it inspected by Public Works. That was our interpretation of this bill. So that should relieve, if I'm correct, then you're off the hook, but I'm still on it. This started with when you apply for a business license for a rental, if you just give me a minute, you have to get the house inspected by Public Works and then by the fire department. Unfortunately, sometimes this can take quite a while. You apply, I buy a condo. This happened to me personally. I bought a condo at La Ladera condominium. I went in and applied for my license, because you have to have that to rent it out to anyone basically nowadays, especially military or Guam housing. So I applied. They said, well, we have to inspect. And I said, okay, Public Works, when can you inspect? Oh, about 40 days from now. And I said, okay. So we scheduled it. The inspection didn't happen. They didn't show. We had to re-inspect. Took another 20, 30 days. We got it inspected and approved, and the fire department came out and walked through the building. It took me 3 months to get a business license. During that 3 months, I technically could not, and I couldn't because it's more of a military, but I couldn't rent the unit. I couldn't, without the rent, I couldn't pay gross receipt tax. I lost, you lost, the government, everybody lost on this thing. So what we came up with was the idea of, I buy the unit, I walk into Public Works, I get, boom, a business license for 1 year. Up to 1 year. During that year, I have to go through these inspections, which we don't mind at all. I mean, they're good inspections. But if I have to now go and hire a certified home inspector, first of all, I don't know of any. There are home inspectors, but they're not certified. I'm not aware of any certified. So that's going to cost me $500-600, you know. I was hoping what we could do, the current Landlord-Tenant Act of Guam, the law, states that the units must be in habitable, safe, and secure condition. It's already there. We already have a law that forces that rental to meet that requirement. So our hope would be a self-certification, that we would walk in with a letter saying, we own this unit, here's our deed, and we certify that the unit is habitable and meets all codes and conditions of the government of Guam. And that is satisfactory for that term while we apply. You know, I don't intend to wait a year when I buy something. I'm going to go right back in. I just want my license as quick as I can so I can rent it out as quick as I can. I don't know how to handle the Section 8 problem. Hopefully we can work that out, or you just don't issue it at the end of that license, or don't pay us, you know, if we don't come back with a replacement. The other section, you have the, down in page 3, the bottom of C, you have the zones it is allowed. You're missing M1 zone. M1 zone allows for residential, unfortunately, so there's a lot of apartments and condominiums in M1 zone. So you need to add that, or you're going to get into a problem of, you know, like in Harmon, you have a lot of apartments in there, and they're not going to meet this law requirement. So if you could add M1, that would solve that problem. So we, the Guam Association of Realtors, thank you so much for this bill, and hope you'll consider the changes we've suggested in order to make the intent of what we wanted flow better. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Mr. Felix. And at this time, I'd like to open the questioning up to the author of the legislation. Senator Gumatato, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, thank you to the panel for being with us today. I do appreciate the input from Rev and Tax. Again, when we think about temporary licenses, I think that the idea of kind of cutting it off like a, you know, it's once, that's it, it seems very, very reasonable. Then it's not ambiguous. It's just, you have 12 months, do it. If not, you can't get a license. I think we just have to be a little bit harder, especially if it's only temporary. So I agree with you. In terms of public works, I think you might have found a new industry, even though there are 3 certified, if I can say, there are, in Guam today, there are 3 certified home inspectors on Guam. So, yeah, which is great. But if you're willing to take up one, that's fine too. But again, it allows a little bit more flexibility for some of these homeowners who can go to these guys. I don't know the amount, Chris. I think you might be more right than anything. But there's a chance for some, maybe perhaps revenue.
Yes, if I could speak to that. I was not aware of that, that there were 3 certified inspectors. Now
Yeah,
that's great news, at least for the department.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind, because the way I read it, obviously, read the bill was obviously different from the way Chris read the bill, perhaps the way you authored it.
Yep.
But if there are certified international inspectors out there, and maybe we could put something in the bill that whether this goes through or not, even just for regular inspections, have them, you know, certified as an arm of
you're just
of
expanding.
DPW.
You're expanding the economy there, which is good.
That's okay.
But I would have to dig in it deep. But yeah, I mean, if there's an effort by DPW that would like to try to, you know, do this, it doesn't seem
We could use all
unreasonable.
the help we could get. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm good with that.
I'll get to you in a second, Fernando. So that's on DPW. So on Gura's side, I do appreciate the input. I know that for much of it, I think the only thing my question was when we talk about licensing, there must be a HUD rule that says, you know, either delineates certain types of licensure, but I'm hoping that Gura can help us with at least the HUD rule if there's anything that we can add so we make it more specific.
There's not a specific rule. I mean, so long as if Guam says they're licensed to do business as a rental operator, that's we meet that HUD rule. So the way we check that is, are you licensed to do business on Guam? So whether it's a temporary license or a regular license, we don't apply any distinction with that, provided it's not to sell popcorn, right?
Right, and I think your when it comes to the temporary license and any litigation, I mean, we're not foreseeing that at this point, but you make really, really valid points on compliance. And I was going to go to Chris. I think that your addition to the M1, I think that's doable. I think we can add that to the in the markup. And again, you're absolutely correct. It is a third party. It would not be someone that's government listed. But there are three, which is good, because maybe there's others that are watching this program or watching the YouTube channel and they'll look at the committee report. They may want to go get a new license and expand that industry. But good, Chris, I was going to.
Well, just in response to Gura, also, the same. You're going to run the same problem when a renter, when a business license, he doesn't renew his license annually. You have the same problem. So I don't think this law would affect you really in any additional way. When the license expires, if you don't renew it, you got to cut them off. Yeah.
Same standard, yes, applies.
And again, I do appreciate your collective input today. And Madam Chair, that's all the questions I have. I kind of defer back to the committee. Thank you again.
You're very welcome.
If I may make a comment on the third party.
Sure.
So we actually spoke on this in our housing summit, and this was one of the recommendations we've made to better support housing and streamline things, is to allow for third party inspections. This is pretty much the common practice in most jurisdictions. There are certain protections that the legislature put in place. What are the certification requirements? To have somebody inspect on behalf of the government of Guam. You could have warranties and bonding requirements for the third-party inspectors, right? Whether they're doing fire inspections or housing or physical inspections.
Don't make it so hard. Don't make it so hard.
Well, something to protect the interest. But I just want to point out one thing, is we do this. There is actually a situation in Guam that's very common, where third parties do inspections on behalf of the government of Guam. And those are the safety inspections of our vehicles, right? There's no way Rev and Tax can do it. They already licensed that to, or authorized in law, a third party inspector to do that on behalf of the government of Guam. And so, it's not a new model, but, I know it's not necessarily germane to the bill, but if then the intent or the issue is the length of time with inspections and capacity, then maybe there should be consideration to just make that itself, not as an industry, but a pathway forward to resolve two issues, two birds with one stone. Obviously, we would support it. We pushed that since the housing summit, but that would be up to the legislature and bodies to determine how that would actually work. On Gura's end, we have our own mandated inspection we need to do before we can even authorize funds to be spent, and we utilize the INSPIRE standard, or actually, Section 8 will be transitioning to the INSPIRE standard mandated by HUD, but something to consider.
Thank you. Chris Felix, you are recognized. Go ahead. I know you have a comment.
Just one comment. I have a fear if you go with these certified inspectors, if you've ever had one done on your house, we've lost a lot of sales from these certified inspectors coming in. They give you like a 30-page document. I mean, they just rip the place apart. I mean, they go way beyond GURA or military inspection standards, way beyond that. And, it's just not needed or required. We need to meet the Landlord-Tenant Act in as far as the condition, and not these long, and again, the expense of it. But your call, Senator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Senator Barnes, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, I support the intent of the bill, and I want to thank the author for doing that. I also was asking him on the sideline if I could be a part of the sponsorship. And there was only one concern that came up while we were doing the analysis of this measure, and it's the bill states that a temporary business license can be revoked if a unit is found to be in violation of Title 21, Division 2, or any health or safety regulations. And the concern that came up was if the unit is occupied and the temporary license is given and the license gets revoked for whatever reason, the tenant might be displaced. So what happens to the tenant if the business license is revoked based on that? And, you know, I told the constituent that when you look at this measure and you support the intent is I will, if I'm at that public hearing, I will approach the question for them. And so that was one of my concerns is if for any reason that happened, what's the recourse? Chris, I mean, would that be?
We've had this, once in a while, we've had like fire departments shut a building down. And we've had EPA shut an apartment building down. That's happened in the past. We work with the tenant as their landlord. You work and try to replace and move them and do what you can, and then you beg EPA or fire, can I have 30 days, you know, please, to fix the problem? You know, we work it out. In 50 years, I've never had to literally throw a tenant out because of a government coming in and restricting. We've always been able to work that out.
That's real great, Madam Chair, and I think that just based on that concern, you know, and the efforts of moving this bill forward is really important because it is a government point as far as the licenses are concerned, it's making sure that everything is up to par, and that if there's any concerns, then of course those timelines are implemented or those extensions or what have you. But this measure has come with, at least from our perspective, from my personal perspective and others who looked at this measure, that this is a good measure. So, Madam Chair, thank the author and you for holding this measure and having the people listen to it. So I'm in support. Senator Massey.
Thank you, Senator Barnes. Senator Barnett, you are recognized.
Sidros Masi, Madam Chair, and thank you to the panel for the testimony. I was just sitting here thinking how bad of a track record the government of Guam has with the word temporary. You know, whether it's a tax increase or our public school kids going to school in temporary classrooms that have been up for over 20 years. So I just wanted to share that I had a chuckle about that. Director Arriola, there seems to be so many different standards that could be applicable, right, for the renters of the island. And I just also want to proffer that I believe I might be the only person renting on this senatorial panel. But so we have the Inspire standard, we have the baseline statute standard that Mr. Felix had brought up, and then we have this InterNACHI standard. So can you kind of explain the existing standards, maybe in comparison to the certified home inspection standards of InterNACHI, and what are the differences?
Yeah, specifically, Senator, I don't know the standards of InterNACHI, but I have to imagine, as Chris said, I have to imagine it's pretty extensive compared to what our inspectors do, say for our home occupancy, along with EPA, along with Guam Fire, right? You know, we'll look at all the electrical, make sure it's built as to plan. We'll look at fire suppression. We'll look at plumbing, of course, you know, sewer disposal, things of that nature. But I have to imagine, I was reading just a little bit of InterNACHI. You know, they look at mold, they look at mildew, they look at patio decks, things of that nature. So it has to be pretty expensive. And I hope I don't get into it by saying, but we also we handle elevator inspections, and the elevator inspections by law has to be QEI certified, quality elevator inspector certified or something like that. And so that inspection, which is a national inspection, is extremely thorough. It's very thorough. It's very detailed, and you know, there's no way around it. But I think if you look in the grand scheme of things, elevator inspection is a lot more detailed and intense than just a single home inspection.
Can you speak to the concerns raised by Mr. Felix about, I mean, anecdotally, his scenario where he set an inspection date and then no one showed up, and then, you know, he's saying it took 3 months to get the...
Yeah, that's a huge surprise for me. Knowing Chris as a personal friend, I don't doubt him, you know, so that's certainly first on my agenda as soon as I get back. We'll pull out the records and we'll find out exactly what happened, because that's not my standard either. What I've been accustomed to in our meetings with our staff is we're doing home inspections, condo inspections. We're doing that within 2 weeks, and I can tell you from initially from 5-6 years ago when I first started, I barely getting calls to see if we can move the inspections up. We're at a good standard. And so, you know, we'll pull the file out and we'll see exactly what happened. And we'll fix this.
Are you short inspectors?
I don't believe we are. Yeah, I think, you know, I think what's helping, even though it's a sad part, is as we've been talking about, there's a housing shortage. So construction is down, rentals are down. So, you know, a lot of the inspectors, our workload isn't as much as it was 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, because in looking at the bill, I have to say, like, I initially supported the intent, and then, you know, just based on Deputy Estevez's testimony and based on your testimony, I'm wondering now just how significant this issue with obtaining the licenses and the inspections really is, and I hope that this isn't a thinly veiled attempt by entities on our island to circumvent, you know, regulatory processes. And that's kind of what I worried about is it kind of seems like this bill is going to farm out your role as a regulatory agency to private inspectors who already have this certification that's mentioned in the bill, which I think is a little interesting.
Yeah, you know, Senator, as they always say, the devil's in the details.
Right.
So, right, I don't know the details with internationally yet. Right. But we will dig into this and see. I'd love to see what their standards and what their requirements are for inspection, because that's the details. Right. That's the stuff you got to deal with.
I think the details also show that there are a few people who already have this certification who may or may not have been involved in the crafting of this bill, who may or may not be watching this hearing and, you know, kind of like, all right, it's good to go.
Right, right.
So yeah, I mean, that's my issue is so many times in our government we set these standards and these rules and these regulations, and then it becomes this race to never mind, let's circumvent those because we got to hurry. And I know that I mean, this administration has tried to tackle the issue with the permitting delays. I mean, going back to probably 2021, 2022, when they appointed then Special Assistant former Governor Carl Gutierrez as the permit czar. And so it's frustrating to hear that, you know, according to some, there are these delays. According to you, they don't exist. So I wanted to ask Deputy Estevez, you mentioned the Inspire standard, and so just kind of like to follow up on the question I asked Director Ariola, what are some of the differences between these kind of different standards that we're talking about here today?
Sure. So the Inspire standard is being adopted by HUD. That's the national standard for the physical inspection of real estate. That's more of it's more similar to what you would need for the occupancy permit to ensure that housing is safe, sanitary, and decent. The inspection that's in the bill, and it didn't click to me at first that Mr. Felix has brought up, is and that goes well beyond any inspection we do, and that's generally intended for warranty claims, insurance, you know, purchases, right? If you want to make sure that before you purchase the home, that's like, you know, you want to talk about a 1,000-point test or something. That's what that's really meant for. If it's just to make sure that it's in good working condition, annotate things that need to be repaired, make sure it's safe, sanitary, decent, that would actually be something like Inspire. And there may be a couple of, there used to be the USP or USPCS, and there are a couple different standards out there, but I believe the predominant one for that baseline inspection is going to be the Inspire standard. So there are a couple different ones. I myself, like my maintenance staff and housing inspectors, went through the training and became certified myself in Inspire. So it's still pretty thorough. It's going to make sure that the unit is good for people to move in. But it didn't really click to me again until Mr. Felix brought up that National Home Inspector certification is not really intended for this type of process. It is pretty intensive. Again, it didn't click because that's not of a concern to us, because we have to follow HUD standard for inspection regardless. But that is the key difference. One is not really kind of meant for the moving in of tenants.
Can you expand a little more in your comments about the liability and the potential for litigation and the repayment, recouping of funds?
Yes. So there's about a 2-year recertification. So it's biannual, and where everyone will need to submit all their documents again. If they're staying in the same unit, the landlord will have to resubmit. The tenant's going to have to resubmit. We have to check everything again. There is a requirement in both our contract with the landlord and our contract with the tenant that should there be any change, they're supposed to notify us immediately. Now, does that always happen? It doesn't. Now, if there's a situation, and it happens with both the tenant and the landlord, if there's a situation in which, let's say, the license lapses, right, and we may not find out till recertification because they didn't let us know, then, we're going to catch that, and then we're going to ask them to repay. We'll give a couple demand notices, and if not, we're taking them to court. And then, if we're in court because they violated a provision, they may never be a HUD landlord again. It could be inadvertent. Again, that's very speculative. I want to be fair when I say that, but we also just want to put that out there as well. Our hope is that landlords are meeting their responsibilities, and I'm sure most are going to utilize this to the benefit, because they won't want to collect the rent from GURA, right? And they're generally not interested in violating provisions with us, but there is the possibility of that happening for sure, and we could see that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, or Deputy Esteves. Director Lizama, what about staffing and relative to enforcement, monitoring of this program, if this bill should pass?
So again, we are typically just at the end of that process, right, where we issue the business licenses. And the staff feel that, there wouldn't be much of a fiscal impact, simply because you're really just putting in the word temporary, your favorite word, and, non-renewable, and so forth. So we don't really see any change with regard to that. Now, if you do pass on the part, and as I mentioned earlier, the inspection part really should rest with DPW, then I think there's nothing really that changes for us in this whole process. And I think that's what the author meant. Yeah.
Do you do any other temporary business licenses?
No, we don't. We don't have that. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm still thinking.
It's a little
housing.
different. Little different. I'm only asking because I know that in the prior term there had been a measure with temporary business licenses that I want to say DRT had opposed that measure.
Yeah, because typically when we issue the licenses, right, they're good for a year, and then they're renewed on an annual basis. So hence the need for, if we issue a license, we issue a license. And so we make, if the person does not meet the requirements upon the date that they're supposed to renew, then we simply don't renew.
Okay. Can you tell the committee how many, and if you have knowledge of how many licensed certified home inspectors there are on island?
I don't have that information on me. Yeah.
I wouldn't know either.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to ask questions on the bill. And again, Director Lizama and Deputy Esteves, and thank you, Mr. Felix, for your testimony. If you could provide your comments in some form or writing, whether it's a copy of the transcript or send a letter. I look forward to entertaining those and making sure that we vet the measure in the committee during the markup meeting. So, Sidos Masi. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Senator Barnett. I too, Maria, was looking at these individual, the third-party inspectors, I mean, like many areas in the government of Guam where we fall short, we look to other assistance, like, nonprofit organizations to help with the homeless issue that we have and et cetera down the line. This is an avenue to provide that type of services to assist the government of Guam, but definitely my concern is about liability. If somebody gets hurt because of an inspection that was done and found that it was it violated the inspection. So the third party would probably be the one that's liable for it. It only makes sense they would be, and we have to clarify that as we move forward with this legislation. Also, I was curious when I looked. I found 2 inspectors. You found 3. I'm curious to find yours because one was a UJOA and one was a NICE that I found that own these 2 companies. And then I decided to look through the Guam legislation, the Guam Code Annotated to find out if there was any such certification licensing process or standards in Guam law, to provide this type of licensing. I didn't see any at all. So I really would like to hear your comments on that and how maybe these individuals can be correctly certified and have it codified that they're inspectors and of course follow some guidelines that DPW also follows, to ensure safety of our public. I had an opportunity to when I researched this legislation, to speak with Peter Trinidad from Chief Building Inspector at DPW. I was hoping he would be here, but Vinci told me he's off island. I mean, talk about a wealth of knowledge. This individual has been in DPW for over 30 years, and of course, hence the building inspector. So my question is, I know he's not here, but according to the building inspector, building permits inspectors currently perform house rental inspections as part of the business license process. And the question is, does the establishment of a certified home inspector relieve the government of Guam building official from conducting inspections on a unit provided by the certified home inspector in case of non-compliance? That's a question that I have as well, and I'm hoping that these questions, if you can answer it, to please, YouTube, you can go on YouTube and rewind the tape. You know how it works to listen again to what was that question that was asked by a senator, to answer. Incorporate that, please, into your testimony. My concern, too, was with regards to military inspections. The majority of these homes that are out, for military use, will they be, will it be acceptable to them, because we know that they come in after the government of Guam comes in, does their inspection, then the military comes in. I'd like to hear from them as well. I'm going to have my office reach out to them if they find any concerns at all, So that would be, we covered that angle so that there's no problems there. And we talked about HUD. There are guidelines in HUD that they have to follow. This is not government funds. This is federal funds. And if there's anything, please write that in and put that in writing so that if we move forward to this, that we're not violating any type of federal guidelines or rules and regulations. The other question I had was, we got the military bill to, I just recently had a friend who needed her apartment, because she was renting it out, inspected from fire and DPW. And she was just traveling back to Guam to get this done. And it was done like in a week. Fire came in like 2 days after she, asked for it, and then DPW was real good about coming in and inspecting, and then she flew off again, but I don't see any issues, but I would like to see your findings at the office. How long does it take, for the longest it would take for someone to get inspected? And then I will be reaching out to Guam Fire Department asking the same question.
Yeah, and we have tracking.
Yeah, okay, so we can get that information, okay, as well. We talked about the liability. I'm really concerned about liability, with regard to the third party coming in. Are we going to require that they have a certain bond, that they have to fulfill if in the case somebody gets hurt, that they're able to, comply with that? So like most contractors, anytime you bring them, they have to have some kind of bondage. Fernando, what's the correct language for that when a contractor needs to have some kind of bonding, right?
Bonded, insured.
Insured, yeah.
Any, it would be up to the legislature on how they like to protect the
Right.
interest.
I think that's very important. I think through Guam Code Annotated, if we had these guidelines on issuances of license, then it follows a protective guideline for the consumer, as well as the business person. So I'm looking forward to Marie's comments regarding that type of issuance of license. My question too is who will draw up and approve the contract to be provided this issuance of inspections, temporary inspections. So in the event there's any issues with complying for temporary business license, what are the qualifications? Who's going to be writing that up? Is it automatic, just give it to them, or, we have to look into that. So if there's any recommendations on how we do it currently for business license to provide in the temporary one on what is required. Is it going to be the same type of requirement, et cetera, down the line? And then it was brought up, DPW has appreciated your comments regarding the certification in the how do you pronounce that, Vince?
I pronounce it Internachi.
Internachi? Yeah, Internachi sounds about right. So I'm looking forward to that. Like you said earlier, I understand about elevators, the inspectors for elevators, and they have to comply with the certain certifications that you can only get that in the mainland. I've dealt with that with you on elevators. Major issue. I think Chris Felix is too. We've had only one individual coming here do inspections. Thank God. I think we got 2 now. We're still down to 1?
Yes, ma'am.
Talk about growing business. If anybody's listening to YouTube, that's the business you need to get into. I don't know how many elevators that we've had to deal with. There's, that breaks down and and this is for people, Manumku, who have issues going upstairs. We saw what happened at the Guam GCIC building. What's happened there? So yeah, if there's a business to get into, it's elevator inspecting, right?
I understand there's 2 individuals that are seeking certification.
I heard that 4 years ago. Seriously, I did.
I just heard that recently, so.
I heard that 4 years ago, and they still haven't got it. So let's encourage them, Vince, okay? Because
Yes.
there's a lot of elevators here and a lot of people with disabilities who really rely on those elevators. So other than that, some great concerns, but the legislation, I think, is going to assist much of the issues we have in especially when it comes to rentals and homes to get them up and going. But I think public safety is first and foremost, the safety of the people that they rely on us to provide that those inspections that are done for their sake. Did you have something else to say?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Senator. Just for clarification, I think if we could, I'd strongly recommend that we define the term residential unit. Is that a single-family home? Is it an apartment? Is it a condo? So on and so forth. Because if this does go through, that's the first thing they're going to say once we arrive at their doorstep or they come in for a temporary business license, and they're going to say, no, I don't fall under that definition. What's the definition of a residential unit? Yeah, we can accurately define that. I think that'd go a long way.
Okay, is that already defined in Guam law? That is defined?
It is in the Landlord Tenant Protection Act, and I think it's pretty consistent. It's called dwelling unit, but you could just adopt that same definition.
Yeah, and
Or
then
at least refer to it. Refer to it.
Okay, and if and of course incorporate that in your testimony, your written testimony, Vince. Okay. Hopefully we'll get this within 5 days. Okay. I'm asking the panel, please, before I turn it over for closing to Senator Gumatauta.
Sorry, just one comment. I've also heard the inspections are faster, but as the director said, right now there's less buildings, less this. Times change. I've been here many, many years, and what is easy today can be hard tomorrow. So I'm just saying I think this bill is important. If not for today, then maybe for tomorrow. So I hope you'll consider keep passaging. No matter, and if it only takes a week or two, I'll go that route. But if I have an option, if it doesn't take that, I'll have an option to fall into. And I think it's good for Guam, and it won't hurt anything to have this bill as a backup. Thank you.
You're welcome. Also, Vince, can you also come into some kind of, or even Reverend Tax, the cost of what a home inspector would charge normally? I mean, I don't know what that would be. 500? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Chris. Can you? Okay.
500 is the last one I had. Yeah. You do that when you're buying a house. You really want it protected, and that's what it's 500.
So some homes, in other words, Chris, some homes would actually hire this inspector, this third party, not government of Guam, come in, inspect the home, and then call in DPW, and
No,
is that what they do?
Buyers who are buying a house will hire the inspector to inspect the house to make sure he's buying what he thinks he's buying. And there's not something underneath or leak in the roof or electrical or something.
I'm still in the rental mode. Okay. Thank you so much for that. So it's around $500, and let's just see if that's conducive to what the cost is, outside, or I don't know if we are required by law to put a price tag to it. I don't think so. I mean, I recognize free business. If someone wants to charge $200, go for it. That's even better, But other than that, I don't think I have any more questions. Vince, anyone else here? Go ahead.
So the cost would really depend on the standard. So if you're doing the National Home Inspector standard, like for buying a house, 500 is actually pretty cheap, I would say. Mm-hmm. But if it's something like Inspire or HQS, it'd be likely something lower, right? Because it's not as intense or involved. But I want to bring up another sample of where we rely on third-party inspectors, are surveyors. Surveyors are licensed. They go, they do the survey, then they submit it for evaluation and a sign-off. But they're licensed, they have insurance to protect. Professional liability insurance is pretty common amongst professionals. It could be one model to look at. But it's not a new thing in Gov Guam or anywhere else to rely on third-party experts to provide measurements and inspections on behalf of the government. So I think it just depends on the standard that we want to use for a rental property, and I think that's key. If this is intended to help with rentals, then maybe we should look at inspection standard that somewhat kind of relies on that, right? So just want to throw that out there.
Okay, and lastly, again, I know I said that twice, but Vince, you know how you oversee inspectors for elevators and make sure they're in compliance at all times. I think that's a job that I think DPW should continue to do if this bill should pass and we have these home inspectors. Not just, Reverend Tax to have to hold the handle on this one, but I think we can incorporate something where you can keep an eye on these individuals as well. Okay. Other than that, that's all my questions that I have, and I will now turn it over for closing for Senator Gumatauta. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for this public hearing on Bill 125-38, and I appreciate the feedback that was provided today by the panel, by your all stakeholders. And I'm excited about working with the committee, Madam Chair, to incorporate the suggested amendments that would strengthen the bill, I believe, moving forward. My challenge today to the committee, those that are not in attendance, not a member of the Committee on Economic Investment, I ask, and I know they're going to be listening and looking at the transcript, I'm going to ask our senators to provide your input in the coming days as outlined in our rules back to this committee. I'm going to encourage them to send an email to Senator Telo at gmail.com with your input and recommended changes to make Bill 125-38 better, as many have mentioned on the floor in the last two sessions and with other policies that we have addressed since January. Ideas to change any part of the bill works in our process in the Guam legislature. Your thoughts, if you're against it, works too. Let our voters and our citizens alike be the judge of the level of contribution, my colleagues, that you all can bring to Bill 125-38. Madam Chair, Bill 125 was born out of an idea that originated last term, and I was watching from the outside, allowing a temporary or a conditional license for all types of businesses. My understanding is that the earlier legislation intended to help businesses open up before they finalize the tedious business licensing process with the government of Guam, thereby encouraging new upstart companies and strengthening the economy. This is about trying to help build this economy. Bill 125, however, specifically addresses the housing needs of individuals and families across our island. Madam Chair, with our island challenged with a limited number of residential units and rental prices the way they are right now, this legislature must be open to policy ideas like Bill 125, which is developed to increase access for working families to single-family homes and apartment and condominium units across our island. Again, this is an option. This is not a requirement. I'll just say that for the record. This bill would present options, not requirements. I want to thank the Guam Association of Realtors for working with me to develop this proposal, and I look forward to partnering with them in the weeks and months ahead on similar measures that would support responsible economic development. With that, Madam Chair, I look forward to the markup process, and we'll take into account all the testimony today, the input from you and the other members that were here today, and once again work with your committee to push this measure 125 through our legislative process. Thanks again for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Senator Gumatautau. And in my committee, I invite all senators to the markup meeting, unlike some other senators, but I open it to everyone. So that being said, you know, I appreciate your testimonies to come in within 5 working days, okay? And anybody else, because my office will continue to accept testimonies from today's hearing, and which you can either email it to my office, or you can provide it to my office at 238 Archbishop Flores Suite 407 at the DNA building in Hagåtña. Or you can send your written testimony to my email at senatortelot@gmail.com. Thank you all for your participation and being here and being patient. I appreciate your time, and create a great day. This hearing is concluded.